Greetings, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Today is August 2nd. This is World Breastfeeding Week, and so I will be reading from my book tonight. My name is Birthmama Sekesa. I'm a community midwife here serving the metro Atlanta area. I started out as a lactation professional. Back in 2010, I started working for my local WIC office here. I was a peer counselor. We were called breastfeeding peer counselors. And I worked there for about 3 years. And then um, I moved on. I got my certified lactation counselor certification. And I moved on to teaching or running, managing rather, a lactation clinic in several offices. There were two midwifery offices here, and then two offices, OBGYN, that I was managing lactation clinic. And so, yeah, in those 6 years, I serviced and worked with hundreds of families and helped them in their breastfeeding journey. I can honestly say I saw a lot of socio dynamics play a part in our community specifically, and our ability to stay committed and breastfeed for the duration. A lot of times in our communities, ours being Black communities, the greatest issue for our women was going back to work. So many times we had to return to work, or we didn't have proper family support in helping us with breastfeeding. So I saw that being the greatest concern um, for our duration or our longevity of breastfeeding. We had a pretty consistent initiation rate, meaning that we would start breastfeeding in the hospital, but lo and behold, a week or two later, they were coming to see us at WIC office. My job was to encourage them to continue breastfeeding, but most of them would opt into doing both formula and breast, which I support. I was like, well, some breast is better than no breast milk. So at the end of the day, we just understand that every drop of breast milk truly does count. So yes, this book right here of mine has been a long journey project for me, and I'm so grateful to finally have it completed. I think for Black Breastfeeding Week, which comes up at the end of August, I'm going to give just live conversation about the journey of completing this book. It was definitely a journey, and so I'm grateful to finally have it finished and ready. And so the catalyst for completing this book for me really happened in 2020. This book is actually dedicated to a dear friend of mine's. Her name is Yolanda Kadima. This was or is, I still consider her, to be with us in spirit. A mother of about seven babies or seven children. She was a student midwife. She used to work with me, and she also was an IBCLC, which is a internationally board certified lactation consultant. And she was a doula. She helped and worked with many families here in the Metro Atlanta area. Just a beautiful spirit, and she was one of the first Black birth workers that I know I'm familiar with that transitioned after giving birth to her final set of children. She had a set of twins in July of 2020. And shortly thereafter, she transitioned from complications from the C-section. She actually hemorrhaged and her story is here. So her husband actually wrote the dedication to this book. Her husband wrote the first beginning. So the first few pages is totally dedicated to this beautiful sister here. Yolanda Kadima, also, like I said, affectionately known as Shiphrah, right? And so the first 200 copies of this book to sell will, the funds will actually go to her foundation. Her husband lifted up a foundation in her name. I want to say it's called the Yolanda Shiphrah Kadima Foundation, but the information is definitely going to be in my the comments below. Um, but it's dedicated to her, and the goal is to raise $5,000 from the sales of these books and donate those funds to her family. So this is an exclusive edition. My journey in this particular book, I've avowed every year to do an exclusive edition to another family who has been impacted by Black maternal loss in some capacity. So, yes, please support, please purchase the book, $25. I think there's about 125 copies to date that still remain. Again, I do hope to sell them all this month and give that family the fat, juicy check. That's what we want to do. Go team us, right? Okay, so without further ado, um, let us, wait a minute, Birth Mama, we gotta clean these glasses. Let's wipe them off a little bit. Get these glasses nice and clean. There we go. There we go. All right. So tonight we are actually going to read about the impacts of not breastfeeding for a mom and the baby. Um, I think yesterday, the first, we read about the environmental impacts of not breastfeeding. So tonight, we're going to talk about the risks to mom and the risks to baby when we choose not to breastfeed. All right, here we go. All right, so risk to non-breastfeeding mother. The breastfeeding benefits for both mom and baby are vast and astonishing. When we as humans behave in accordance with nature's design, then we are privy to certain biological benefits or health gains. On the contrary, when we operate against this design, then we tend to forfeit those same benefits and potentially suffer. An example of this is artificially straightening or perming of the hair. We are the only species on this planet that alter our hair or fur, and as a result, many people suffer holistically with headaches, bad skin, scalp infections, balding, hormonal imbalances, fibroids, tumors, and even cancer. This is a quote. Permanent hair dyes linked straighteners linked to higher breast cancer risk. Breastcancer.org. This is from December 9th, 2019. Research suggests that nearly 75% of Black women use some type of chemical relaxer straightener on their hair. Research also shows that hair products contain more than 5,000 chemicals, including some considered to be hormone disruptors. Hormone disruptors can affect how estrogen and other hormones act in the body by blocking them or mimicking them, which throws off the body's hormonal balance. Because estrogen can make hormone receptor positive breast cancer develop, excuse me, hormone receptor positive breast cancer develop and grow, many women choose to limit their exposure to these chemicals that can act like estrogen. Other chemicals that make up hair dye have been found to cause mammary gland tumors in rats. Chemical treatments used to permanently or semi permanently straighten or relax hair also contain a mixture of chemicals. Many straighteners contain formaldehyde, which is considered a carcinogen, a substance capable of causing cancer. End of quote. Likewise, with breastfeeding, when we decide to stop a naturally occurring process like lactation by binding our breasts or taking supplements to discourage the milk supply, then our bodies suffer holistically. According to the National Center for Biotechnology Information, NCBI, quote, non-breastfeeding mothers are at higher risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer, as well as obesity type 2, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and cardiovascular disease, end quote. There is also greater potential for both postpartum hemorrhage and postpartum depression. Ultimately, continuing a naturally occurring biological process, such as breastfeeding your baby, grants biological protections from several of the aforementioned ailments. There are also other immeasurable benefits to the breastfeeding mother, such as feeling more empowered, confident, and proud. We are all energetically and cosmically connected. I am my sister's keeper, and our community is only as strong as our weakest link. This truth is evident within the breakdown and disconnect of our communities. Breastfeeding bonds the child to the mother, who should be bonded to her community. In turn, as the child grows, then they too will be bonded to their community. This bond creates kinship and extends an extended family, whereas my child is your child. This relationship has been greatly disrupted with the intentional displacement of breastfeeding. I want to pause and speak to that just a little bit. When we talk about the intentional displacement of breastfeeding, I want us all to really accept and understand that um, the influence of using formula was very intentional. When we understand that we live in a capitalist society, America is driven by capitalization, and milk is free. Breast milk is free. There's no money in that. Just like there's no money in a cure, there's no money in being healthy. We have to understand is the same thing applies to breastfeeding, and it's one of those topics that can be very touchy because we love our freedom, right? We love our liberation. And that doesn't mean that you breastfeeding that you can't be free or liberated. I always like to encourage my moms to understand that breastfeeding and having a baby doesn't stop you. It only slows you down a little bit, and sometimes that's needed. Sometimes in this fast paced microwave society that we live in, you need to slow down a little bit, and get your thoughts together, get your life right. And then when we start, a lot of times we will live our lives better because we have children. We make smarter choices. We do greater things. And a lot of time, in every case, these babies are blessings to us, right? And so, in understanding that and understanding the impact of your decision to not breastfeed your baby and the impact that can have on you and your body, hopefully that will encourage you to or discourage you from using formula, at least on a long term basis. At least encourage yourself to breastfeed for as long as you possibly can commit to doing it. So I know I said I was going to read about the non-breastfeeding baby. I think you'll have to stay tuned to that until tomorrow. I think I'm going to stop right there. That's enough for us to ponder on for one night. Again, please buy my book. I hope this sparks you to buy Love and Lactation. There's tons of tools and juice that's listed in this book. The book has a plethora of information that goes far beyond just risks of not breastfeeding. We go on into talking about what's actually in the milk, um, um, the do's and don'ts of breastfeeding, tips for breastfeeding success, solutions to 9 common breastfeeding concerns, and dispelling 19 myths about breastfeeding. So please purchase the book. Like I said, all proceeds from the first 200 copies of this book will go to the Yolanda Shiphrah Kadima Foundation. Um, yeah, so thank you for tuning in, and I'll be in touch real soon. Have a good evening.